Vice President, and he is also this year's Sheriff of the Year for the National Sheriff's Association. So congratulations.
Check. You can write it to Border Sheriffs, you give it to Country Bank, and we will get it to these hardworking men. Thank you.
It's great to be here in Yavapai County. I'm going to get down here if that's all right. Well, first I wanted to acknowledge Sheriff Deaver, Sheriff Waugh. We've got 15 sheriffs in Arizona, and all of them aren't patriots like these two men here, and I want to acknowledge them. Tell you, and Sheriff Deaver was talking about, this is a long and hard fight that we have been in, and this problem didn't start yesterday, and it's not going to be solved tomorrow. And that this isn't a time to sit back, it's a time to stand up and to fight for America and who we are, for the rule of law. And the gravest threat to our national security is an unsecured border with Mexico.
Yes.
Tell you, we've got a couple pictures there. Well, there's Sheriff Joe and I right up top. I love Sheriff Joe. Sheriff Joe's a good man. In fact, my fellow sheriffs tricked me after my first year. I was sheriff for only a year, and they needed a new president of the Sheriff's Association. And Sheriff Casey Clark in Navajo County says, I nominate Paul Babeu as for president. And I forget who it was, maybe it was Sheriff Deaver here, that I seconded the nomination. I didn't even have time to talk. I said, whoa, wait a minute. Sheriff Joe wasn't there. And I said, I don't know that I want to do that. I said, I've only been sheriff 1 year. And they said, no, this is a good thing. You get to tell Sheriff Joe what to do. I've tried it a couple times, and how do you think that worked out? I get along with all of our sheriffs well, and they do a great job. And here's the beauty: we have many police officers here tonight who are retired. I think this is like Copland up here in Yavapai County, right? And thank you for your service to your communities, your counties, and to your state and to the country. And those of us who have been in law enforcement and then get the honor, the privilege to serve you in elected office as the elected sheriff, it is a great honor that only in our republic, where we understand that we're constitutional officers. Janet Napolitano is not the boss of me. President of the United States. And that's where we get it. We work for you in the community. Sheriff Waugh is working for you in Yavapai County. And so the problem we have here in Arizona, I'm going to talk about both the unsecured border and how it's a public safety threat, and we get that, and how it's a national security threat. A lot of people don't fully understand it. And what I want to do tonight before I leave, I'm going to arm you with as much information to debunk all of this nonsense that's coming from Washington, that day in and day out, all we hear from Janet Napolitano is she's up there saying the border is more secure than ever. That unprecedented resources are being added to secure the border. And now I'm going to share with you this figure here. There's 241,000 illegal immigrants that were apprehended just here in Arizona in one of the 9 sectors. There's 4 border states, right? We know there's California, there's Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, the great state of Texas. We've got some Texans here. Well, there's 9 sectors of the U.S. Border Patrol. Ground zero is right here where we're at. You're in the Tucson sector. Okay, there's only 2 sectors in Arizona. There's the Tucson sector and the Yuma sector. The Yuma sector is the western sliver, north and south, in Arizona, and also includes the eastern sliver of California. It also includes Nevada. That border is now secure, and I'm going to get to why that is. There's a few reasons why that is. And it's going to be the basis for the solution to secure our border. See, we have the ability, the know-how to secure the border. It's just we haven't had the political will or the leadership. And it's going to take all of us here to demand that that happen. So 241,000, this is just the Tucson sector, folks, last year. How many people just in the Tucson sector, how many people do you think came through? Pam knows this. 3 times this? Anybody else? Shout out. 10 times that? It's about the border. This is an estimate by the Border Patrol, and I'm going to steal a line from Larry now. That the Border Patrol tells us that 241 is a reflection of 1 out of every 2.6. So do the math. It's approximately 400,000 more came in that they don't know who they are, where they came from, or where they're going. Is that a problem? Absolutely. Sheriff Deaver often says, see, I'm giving him credit now, that it's like going fishing in a pond and you have on your stringer 10 fish. Is that an indication how many fish are in the pond? And that's what our federal government is trying to tell us. And then how do they come up with 400,000? Why isn't it 600,000 or 1 million? And this is where a lot of sheriffs and a lot of people who are in this business say it's far greater than that. This is what they admit to. Now, public safety. See that figure down there? 17 to 30%. 17 to 30% of the quantifiable figure of the 241 we know have a criminal record here in America. That's a problem for us in law enforcement. Okay? One time I was speaking to a group and I says, how many of you folks have a criminal record? And a couple people started to raise their hand. And I said, put your hands down. I was just getting you to think, to see what this issue is. I wasn't calling people out. I'm not going to do that here. A couple people looking around. Who's going to see me move my hand up? Is the reason that's a problem is sometimes it's like winning the lottery for us to catch these bad guys. It's not the first time they've committed a crime, right? What does it take to be somebody who has a criminal record? You have to be caught, prosecuted, plead guilty. So you either have to be convicted, you either have to plead guilty to crimes, or you're convicted of crimes. These are people with criminal records, 17 to 30%. You like that broad range? So 17 to 30%, we're talking about, of 241,000, there could be 40-something thousand, there could be, I don't know how many, that have a criminal record here in the United States just last year alone. We're not talking about the last several years, we're talking about 1 year, folks. Is it reasonable for us to believe or to assume that those same percentages would hold true for that much larger figure of 400,000, just using the Border Patrols? Is that reasonable? I don't want to be unreasonable here. It's reasonable, right? So now what are we talking about? So now automatically the baseline we're talking about 641,000 people came into our state in the Tucson sector alone who are not even from America. And somehow we've arrived at a place where our own president, attorney general, our own government tries to shout us down to believe that somehow we're un-American. That we have a problem with these people being here. Okay? Where we enforce the law even on our own good citizens here. You empower me and every officer of the law to apply the law to suspend your constitutional rights, your liberties, your freedoms, to place you under arrest. We don't give that authority to anybody except in law enforcement, right? A citizen. And somehow we've tipped this up on its head to get to the point where we're shouted down that we can't apply the law to people who aren't even from America. That's how crazy this has gotten. 641,000. Who are OTMs? We've got a lot of answers here tonight. That's good. Other than Mexicans. These are people who obviously are not from Mexico. Could be Central America, South America, Could be other parts of the world. Countries of interest. Now, I asked this one time, I said, what's a country of interest? And I had this wonderful woman say, she started naming vacation spots. And I said, well, those may be of great interest to you, but not for this conversation here. We're talking about countries of interest. Yemen, Jordan, Somalia, Syria. Countries that we should be raising our eyebrows saying, what the heck are these people coming through Cochise County? Because they can. Exactly. Because they can. What did the 9/11 Commission warn us about? Some of the things. Dirty bombs, sleeper cells, remain vigilant. In direct contrast of everything the federal government's trying to do to lull us into a false sense of security, like everything's just fine. Why are they doing that?
Because we've been infiltrated by communist Marxists.
Well, I'll tell you why they're doing this. Why they're doing this is because they want to just sit down and get down to business about immigration reform. That's what they want to get to. And if I'm up here and other sheriffs are up here saying, screaming, the emperor has no clothes, that's a problem for them.
Yes.
Because they know we're not going to have this discussion about what we're going to do with 12, 15 million people who are here illegally. Okay? So they don't like us talking about these things. And these facts are stubborn things, aren't they?
Yeah.
Here's also some facts, just in our county. Here's before I was sheriff in 2008, there was less than 20,000 pounds, just marijuana. And no, I can't sell it for medicinal purposes. I get asked that often. More than double each of the last 2 years, and we're going to crest that this year. What does a pound of marijuana go for now? Here. It's a good thing you said, I don't know. Everybody was looking at you. Pound of marijuana in Arizona goes for about $500 a pound. On the East Coast, it's about $1,000 a pound. Okay? And this isn't even scratching the surface of what's going on. So, with figures like this, is the border more secure than ever before? Pursuits. You know what a pursuit is? What's a pursuit? A chase. Not me running after somebody, not like on foot. But I'm talking about a vehicle pursuit. Have you seen many of those up here in the Yavapai County? You have? A couple? Well, try this. Last year we had 340 pursuits. That's a problem, folks. And it's like 142, 140 the 2 years before I was sheriff, and then 289, 340. A reporter asked me, Sheriff Paul, isn't this just, you're just doing a really good job and you're bringing a heavier hand of enforcement and your deputies are like rocking and going after these bad guys? And I said, well, I'd like to take that compliment and appreciate that. More than that, it underscores the fact that this border is not secure. That these criminals have changed their tactics, are becoming more violent, are disobeying our law enforcement officers. In a million years, would you ever believe that you would flee from an officer of the law at high rates of speed? And I ask you that, how crazy is that for a member of your family to do something like that? To go 90, 100, 110, 20 miles an hour, we terminate more pursuits. Intentionally, they're trying to cause traffic wrecks with our citizens. Running red lights. This is outrageous, and it can't go on. And that's what's happening. My deputies, my sergeants, my lieutenant says, Sheriff, every time they're armed now. That wasn't the case 2 years ago. They're always fleeing. And the threat is far greater. That's a problem. The border is not more secure than ever before. This is what one of our patrol cars looked like at the end of a pursuit. This guy's backing in, ramming into one of my deputies. Fleeing, putting citizens at risk. This is a body bag in the bottom right. March 6th, there was a pursuit. One of my deputies, Deputy Warren, Russ Warren, guys, I'm 6'2", he's like 6'6", huge guy, and he's just a So proud of him. He's a hero. Married, got 4 kids. He went out before dawn, and this guy's going down the road without headlights on. You know what they do? These guys are driving with night vision. All of my deputies don't have night vision. Okay? So he thinks this is a drug load, calls it out. Other deputies, we all come and help each other out when we need help, right? Are responding to the area. This is near I-8, Veckle Valley. You've heard of that, Veckle Valley, the famous pass-through for drug and human smuggling. And this guy's going down the wrong way down the Interstate 8, jumps over into the desert. My deputy loses him because of the dust. You ever try to follow somebody in the desert? Pretty tough. And the guy's got his lights out, and it's not even light, okay? So he's darked out. My deputy's trying to catch up and loses him. And then he sees the brake lights click on in the back because this guy's tapping his brakes. And he catches up to him. And then other deputies are arriving. He lights him up, comes up closer, approaches the vehicle. It was a Coyote with a load of illegals, full of them. He runs one way, could care less what happens to these people. And most of them from Central America run the other way, and there's a canal right there. And exactly, oh no. And that canal's 12 foot deep. Not your regular canal. You've seen the canals. You don't go into a canal. It looks calm as can be on top, right? And what's underneath? Swift currents. Because there's nothing to hold back that water. There's no rock sediment, all the turns, all of that. It's very fast. And he's hearing screaming, and Deputy Warren runs up to the side of that canal and sees all these people, sees 5 people pulled under right before his eyes. And he yells to the other deputy to grab a rope or something from his car. He drops his duty belt and jumps into this canal. The last thing he should do. Jumps into the canal, and the 5 other people that were there all cling on to him. You know, anybody, lifeguards in here? You imagine 5 people clinging on to you? This guy's 6'6", and they nearly drowned my deputy. Okay, the other deputy had jumper cables in, threw them in, and pulled them out. Thank God. And they saved 5 people. You know what happened to the other 5? They drowned. This current was so swift, divers from the dive team in Maricopa wouldn't even come in to go underneath because it was so swift, even with their gear and equipment. And they were stuck to one of the gates. That's how swift that current was. And they couldn't shut it down because the walls would collapse, all these different things. I didn't know that until this point. So I talked to Warren that day, and I said, I'm proud of you, what you did, but why on earth did you jump in that water? Because I'm worried about my deputy, right? And he goes, Sheriff, he goes, these people were screaming for their lives. And I saw these people drown right before my eyes. And he goes, I had to jump in and save them. My friends, that's the measure of our men and women who serve us in public safety, in law enforcement. That's who we are. We are not racists. We are not profilers based on race, color, and national origin. We profile criminal behavior and criminal conduct. And shame on the President of the United States for attacking us in law enforcement the way he has. In the history of America has the President of the United States come after law enforcement the way he has.
He's a traitor!
So we have, and we saw this a couple of times. We saw this in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Remember what happened with Officer Sergeant Crowley and Professor Gates, his friend? And what did the President say? The Cambridge police acted... The President said this. The Cambridge police acted stupidly, and then he went on to make a statement. I can almost quote it verbatim because I usually pull it out of my notepad, and said that in America we have a history in law enforcement of singling out African Americans and Hispanics disproportionately. That's a fact in America. And then he goes on, now let me be clear. I don't have all the facts. I haven't read the report. So, you got to be kidding me. Here he just kicked law enforcement in the chops. And he doesn't have the facts? And then, there's another story coming here. Look, remember the story of him saying that there's a Hispanic man and his son or daughter walking down Main Street, hand in hand, holding hands, okay? There's just a pretty innocent image in your mind, right? Then he adds an ice cream cone to it. You can't get a more innocent picture in your mind. This is the president telling this story.